right. Very good. So we're going to start recording now.
Well, hello everyone. I'm so glad that you are all here for this talk. My name is Olga. I'm Almekina-Vera, and first of all, I wanted to say a huge thank you to Texas Guitar Society and to Abraham and Ivan and everyone who's been working to put this organization together. You guys are getting it off the ground so quickly and in a really exciting way. It's actually really cool to see the new generation of guitarists kind of taking over and doing things right, you know, like really trying to bring the community together. I think that is exactly the right thing to do. I feel like in North Texas and in Texas in general, there's so much great guitar, right? There are so many great players and composers and builders and teachers. And I think it takes someone with a lot of passion and vision to put it all together. I know Professor Eddie Healy has been doing an amazing job trying to keep us all informed, right? And sending out the information to all of us. We're very grateful for that too. And so thank you all who are doing this work. I know it takes a lot of hours and it truly is a labor of love to do something like this, right? So thank you for doing it. And of course, it's a huge honor for me to be invited to speak. And it just underscores the importance of community. I feel like none of us exist in a vacuum, right? So we all owe our successes to other people. And so because of the support that I've received in the guitar community, I feel like I've been able to develop as a composer and performer and teacher. So thank you guys for all of that. And so I'm honored to speak today. I would like to focus on some of my recent works, and I hope that you are interested in finding out a little bit about what I've been up to in terms of my composition. I realize that some of you may be aware that I've been composing for some years now, but maybe you've heard one or two works of mine. So today I wanted to focus on works that maybe either have not been performed yet or have just been premiered. So I wanted to share some exciting news about those works. Just a little bit about myself, if you don't know who I am originally from Belarus, which is in Eastern Europe, and I've been living here in the United States since 1997. I am an American citizen now. I'm actually a citizen of Belarus and the United States, and proud of that. And I've been in Texas that whole time since 1997. I've lived in Houston and in North Texas in those years. And I teach full-time at Collin College, which is in Collin County in North Texas. And I've been at the Plano campus these past 10 years or so, and now I'm in the Wiley campus, which is a brand new campus, and I am the first full-time faculty member who has transferred in music to that campus. So I am now building the music program there with some amazing adjunct faculty. I am the first full-timer, but hopefully not the last one. We're trying to build a music program so that there will be need for more faculty, and it's really beautiful facilities. If you guys are ever in the area, stop by the Wiley campus of Collin College, see the music area. It's really something. So we are trying to spread the word about that and get students excited and enrolled in our music classes. In terms of performance, I'm a classical guitarist, and I play in duo with my husband of 20 years and my co-conspirator, Fernand Vera. He's over here on the call. We play together as Keither, a duo, and I also do some solo concerts. So of course, recently there hasn't been much of anything in terms of performance because of COVID, but we're hoping that 2021 is going to be a lot more friendly to the musicians, all right? And so that we'll get back to some kind of normalcy. And in terms of composition, I started writing music formally probably around 2005 or so. I started writing my compositions down, and within a few years, I felt like there was a very good, warm reception to my music among the people in the guitar community. And that's, as I mentioned, I'm very grateful for that, because when you're just starting out as a composer, sometimes it's hard to know, well, is my music any good? Does anybody like it? Should I be continuing to write? Because if you don't get that encouragement early on, it can be really difficult to persevere, right? It's easy to get discouraged. But thankfully for me, I received a lot of encouragement early on. And so I was encouraged to continue. And I started writing music primarily for guitar ensemble, guitar quartets, guitar trios. First, it came out of a need for writing new accessible music for our own guitar ensembles, our student guitar ensembles that we were conducting, both Fernand and I. And then it just kind of continued on. Eventually, I started getting some commissions from other players and ensembles, and it's just sort of been developing gradually up until this moment. And I feel like I'm kind of at an exciting point of my career as a composer, because I feel like more opportunities have come recently. And actually, COVID, if there's any silver lining, this awful period has given me a little bit of time to compose, especially last summer. We were hunkered down here in Houston, and I really got to work on my music and write some new works. So that was really good. So in terms of new compositions that are coming down the pipe that I have, that maybe some of them have not even been shared yet with the world, I want to share several with you. And I want to mention that I really like to compose for specific people and specific ensembles. I feel like that's my favorite way to compose, because I almost get into the mind and technique of a player that I'm writing for. And then I feel like I kind of try to channel their energy and their performance personality, their way of playing through my music. So maybe some of you remember, and I know that Abraham, before we started recording this, he was talking about how he heard Matt Palmer play the Heavens 100, which was a work that I wrote for him in 2014. And that piece was really crafted with Matt Palmer in mind. Of course, since then it's been played by other people with great success as well. But that was just kind of one of the earliest examples where I really specifically tailored the work to a specific performer. And recently, I've gotten a chance to write for Clarinet and Guitar, or so yes, Clarinet Meets Guitar is a duo of Jeff Brooks, who is a clarinetist who teaches in New Mexico in Albuquerque, and then Silviu Ciule, he's a Romanian guitarist who teaches in Florida. They played together as a clarinet and guitar duo, and they commissioned me to write a clarinet and guitar work for them. So that's in the works, and then maybe I can go ahead and start sharing my screen and showing you some of this work. Let me see where it is. This was written during the COVID lockdown. Are you guys able to see this?
Yes, it looks beautiful.
Okay, so this one's called a Romanian Fantasy. And let me see if I have a cover for this. For this particular piece, I was inspired by Romanian folklore. Silviu being from Romania, and of course, Romania having such an amazing tradition of folk music and dance. I plunged myself into research about Romanian folklore and came up with a lot of inspiration for that, and which found its way into the score. And this piece has not even been performed or recorded yet, but a recording is due out probably February or March. And of course, Jeff and Silviu have had a little bit of difficulty rehearsing together because of the COVID thing, but they are supposed to be getting together and recording this soon in February, I think, so in 2021. Another work that I wrote over the summer, this one is a commission for solo guitar, and it was commissioned for me by Jane Curry, who is a wonderful New Zealand guitarist. And whenever I get a commission by someone from another place, maybe an exotic place that I have never been to, I've never been to Romania, I've never been to New Zealand, I almost take it as an excuse to just plunge myself into study of that culture and music and traditions and art, because to me, I just want to be kind of submerged in that, in those traditions when I write. And so it was fascinating learning about the Maori culture of New Zealand. And so this title, Ka'ao Ka'awatea, the dawning of a new day, it was taken from Maori language and Maori culture. And this one, this solo guitar work, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see. It has some extended techniques and fun things that the guitarist can do. And it's in 4 short movements. Karakia, which is chant. And you see a lot of freedom, metric freedom with speeding up and slowing down, feathered beaming, and you can see irregular groupings of notes. And then second movement, which is called Full Moon, Rakau Nui. And this one is a really luscious and open sounding, supposed to imitate the light of full moon on the waters of the ocean around New Zealand and the currents. And so then the third movement we have is called Wiri Wiri, or Wiri Wiri. And it also comes from Maori mythology, and this is about the god who manifested himself as a shimmer of the air on a hot day of summer. Maybe you've seen here in Texas we have a lot of heat in the summer, right? So maybe you've seen sometimes when it's so hot that it's almost hazy, and that is that image, the witty witty, that kind of shimmer of the summer haze. And so this one is completely metrically free. Abraham, did you
I
want to say
Yeah,
something?
I have a question for you.
Absolutely. Yes.
Since we have a composer here in the call, I know that there is a special difficulty for composers that are not familiar with the guitar.
Yeah.
Um, is there any way that you, as a composer, will recommend these new composers that have no idea how to write for the guitar? How can they prepare to do something that is so well structured, like your music? Because I know that you are a guitarist that composes music for guitar. Is it a different process, do you think, for non-guitarists, or how can they prepare for that?
So that's a great question. Thank you, Abraham. Yeah, absolutely. Writing for the guitar. Let me see. Let me stop my screen share for a moment here. Writing for the guitar is difficult if you are not a guitarist, right? It's one of those instruments, along with the organ and the harp, that is just kind of strikes terror into the heart of composers who don't play those instruments. So I think one of the best things that you can do is maybe take a beginning guitar class. I would recommend just actually taking a beginning class in the instrument and familiarize yourself with basic techniques, 1 semester or so, right? And I have actually a handout that I could send whoever is interested in this, whoever is interested in starting to write for the guitar. I did a presentation at SMU some years back regarding this very topic for the composition department, about some of the things to keep in mind and do's and don'ts when you're starting to think about writing for the guitar. I'd be happy to share that PDF with whoever is interested.
That would be great
Yeah,
information that, if you are
yeah,
happy, we can share on the Texas Guitar Society
yeah.
website.
I
And
can.
it could be a tool for somebody that is interested on how to compose for the guitar. That will be something that direct them to the Texas Guitar Society page,
Yes,
and we
yes.
can have all your information and your article there. I think that will
Yeah,
be very interesting.
yeah. I'll be happy to share
Well,
that.
thank you so much for doing it.
Um, yeah, and actually working with a guitarist. That is the next step. Working with someone who is a guitarist and getting their input, getting them to play through passages and giving you feedback about what's possible, what is guitaristic, what is not guitaristic, right? Because sometimes things that look really thin on the page, like I can go back to my, let's see, my score here. This looks very thin, right? It just looks like single notes and like where the bass is and everything. But if you're using a lot of the open strings, there's a lot of sympathetic vibration on the guitar. So it actually sounds sometimes a lot thicker than what it looks like on the page. A lot of times young composers maybe overload the texture and put too many notes in each chord, and which makes it very strenuous for the left hand, makes it difficult, makes it kind of clunky to get from one chord to another. And this particular movement is maybe a little bit of an exception because it's primarily just this kind of single line or arpeggiated texture. But maybe looking at this next one, this one does have thick textures, but in all of these chords, you have a lot of open strings used. So using open strings whenever possible to enhance the sound of the instrument, to give it that extra boom and resonance. If you're writing for solo guitar, it's very important to make it resonate, right? If you're playing in an ensemble, a single line, of course, is fine if other parts are picking up the bass and the middle register. But if you're writing for solo, you have to really make it sound good. And sometimes it's just using the right kind of open strings and harmonics and things like that. So this is Ka'au Watea. And let me show you maybe one more. This one is called Étoiles par grand vent, or stars in, how would you even translate it? This, it doesn't have a great French translation. Basically, stars in windy conditions, maybe, or something like that. And this is a homage to Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, who was one of my favorite writers and just an amazing person. He was a writer and a pilot, kind of like a pioneer at the dawn of aviation, was an adventurer, was an incredible human being. And so this was an homage to him, and it's written as a commission for the Jay Kochersky and Lina Morita duo, who are piano and guitar, husband and wife duo, and they play so beautifully together. And this is going to be on their upcoming CD. They already recorded it, but I believe they're waiting for the best moment to release the disc. And so this work is also going to be published soon. This is all the three pieces that I've shared with you have not been published yet, and they have not been publicly performed yet. But this actually leads me into the fun, cool news that I wanted to share today.
We have a question in the
Yes.
chat from Anush.
Yes.
Is it that the time signatures that you select, do they have any signification? He's asking specifically for the 3/4 plus 1/8.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. I know what you're talking about, the last movement of Ka'au. You know, I get a little bit tired sometimes of the usual time signatures. And if you've ever played my music, you probably noticed some 7/8 and 5/8 and changing meters and whatnot. It's just 4/4 and 3/4. I get a little bit tired of it sometimes, and I want to hear more asymmetry. And in this particular movement, it was like that. I felt like 3/4, a measure of 3/4 was too short, and the measure of 4/4 was too long. So what I really needed is 7/8 notes in that measure. But it really felt like 3 beats and then a half of a beat. So not 7/8 notes, but rather 3/4 and then eighth. And it took me a while to find, this is the first time I've actually used this time signature throughout a movement, but this is a very short movement. And then you see it goes to 4/4 in the end. But it was just enough to create a little bit of a different kind of feel, that it gave me the variety that I wanted. 3.5, it's in 3.5, I guess you could say.
We have another question from Marta. She says, Olga, yes, could you talk about a little bit about feathered beams?
Feathered beaming, yes, absolutely. Wow, so you guys are so particular. That's awesome. That's fantastic. So what feathered beaming is, this is actually one of the techniques that modern composers use to indicate slowing down or speeding up kind of liberally, right? So it's an accelerando or retardando, and sometimes it's more visually, I think, clear to represent it with feathered beaming. So, like for example, like this, you go ta ti ta 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 ti ta 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 ti ta 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 like that. And because this is completely free metrically, as you can see, there's no meter in this movement at all. So if I go from the beginning, it says quick and light with complete freedom of tempo, speeding up and slowing down at will. So this there's no meter, there's no counting, right? They're just gestures. And it's easier to show a slowing down and speeding up in a gesture with the kind of feathered beaming that I'm using here. And it's actually not too hard to do in finale. It's just a couple of clicks. And at first it looks really intimidating. But then when you start doing it and you realize, oh, this just means slow down gradually or speed up gradually. Does that answer your question, Marta? Is that what you were looking for?
She's saying it's very interesting. Thank you. Never saw this before. And
Thank you,
everybody,
Marta.
if you have questions, you're welcome to mute yourself and talk. I'm sorry if I was like, nobody make any noise, but no, you're welcome, of course, to participate and ask questions and be part of this community. I'm sorry if it came out wrong. We want you to participate. It's encourage.
Yes, absolutely. I love the back and forth, so if you guys have a question, just don't hesitate to ask me.
I have a question for you, Olga.
Yes, who's that?
It's Ivan.
Okay,
Ivan. Ivan Ivan.
yes.
uh, so, I like to compose a little bit too. I'm not. Oh, I guess I'll start my video.
Yes.
I'm not prolific by any means, but I have done some. I take interest in composing guitar music, such as yourself, and I do want to make it more of a canon. But I guess to go to my question is, as a composer for guitar and for other instruments, do you find yourself being inspired by guitar composers or other composers inside and or outside the classical realm to inform your compositions? And I just want to see. I mean, obviously, you're going to want to inform your compositions for guitar based on guitar music, but I think merging different styles and forms there can always be can create a pretty interesting product. I'm a big fan of this. He was born in Yugoslavia when before it fell apart. His name is Dusan Bogdanovic. You may have heard of him. And so he's mixed influences of jazz counterpoint with Balkan rhythm, and he studied African rhythm. So he's kind of creates this very unique sort of sound. And I have an old composition teacher of mine that follows his path in that composition sense. His name is Michael Mori. I'm not sure if you've heard of him.
I know Michael. We
Yeah.
went, yeah, we were at
Yeah.
UNT together at one point together.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So his influences come from jazz fusion and from rock and metal. It's something completely different from classical music. So I'm sorry it's such a long question, but that's kind of what I'm trying to point at.
No, I think you're absolutely right, Ivan, that there is no sense of putting yourself in the corner anymore, right? I feel like we are now in a time where inspiration and influence can come from absolutely anywhere. It doesn't have to be quote unquote classical. So I find myself influenced by things that I guess grew up listening to and also continued listening to. We always come back to our roots, right? So one of the first composers that I heard was Mozart when I was 5 or 6. So classical music was very influential for me. But at the same time as I was exposed to classical music, I also listened to a lot of rock and roll, British rock, American rock. And so I find that rock and roll finds its way into my music even when I'm not trying to, bring it in. Because I don't really honestly listen to rock and roll too much anymore, but it's in here, right? It's so when I write, so sometimes you have these kinds of driving rhythms or or certain riffs and things like that, gestures that come out, they're there. And so what you listen to the most ends up finding its way into your subconscious and eventually into your music. So I feel like for me, it's influences of just composers from all eras of history, from medieval. One of my first influences was Guillaume de Machaut, a 14th century French composer. I know it may sound really weird, right? Like, wow, you started writing because of that. But that was one of the most exciting things that I heard, one of the newest, freshest sounds that I discovered for myself in my early 20s was medieval and Renaissance music. And I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. And I started trying to imitate that and write vocal polyphony. And then from that, I kind of dipped my toe further into composing. Eventually, I was very influenced by romanticism, romantic music. Of course, being a guitarist and practicing a lot of guitar music, that also ends up being drilled into your subconscious. So, of course, Brouwer, of course, Villa-Lobos, Diaz, Mertz, right? Tariga, all of these great guitar composers that came before us, they're all in there too. Those influences are there. So sometimes I like to say, if you feel like you hear an influence in my music, it means it's there. If you can hear it there, it's there. Even if I wasn't particularly trying to put that in, but if you can hear it, I'm sure it's there. And I also love folk music. That is something else that I feel like I'm kind of a closet ethnomusicologist. And I love digging in folk music and old ethnological recordings, like turn of the century, early 20th century recordings, and so on, listening to people like peasants from Europe and other places just singing and playing their instruments. And this is like not influenced by classical music, right? I want to hear it in its kind of raw um, environment. And I really love hearing that. And then I feel like that also sometimes finds its way into some of my music as well. At least lately, that's been something that I've been drawn to. So it can be anything from all eras of pop and rock to all eras of classical, starting with Gregorian chant and going to the 21st century. It can be folk music from anywhere in the world. I really feel like we can be just omnivores at this point, right? There are no more barriers in terms of finding information and finding influences. So we can embrace it, and I think it can make our music all the more rich.
Totally agree. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So Ivan, yeah, it's great to have very varied influences. I look forward to hearing what you are writing.
Actually, Ivan composed a piece for the SMU ensemble,
Awesome.
and we are looking forward to recording uh, one of his compositions. It's very interesting. Ivan is it's very talented for composition, so hopefully we'll make that project happen, right, Ivan?
I'm decent, but I appreciate the I appreciate the praise.
Well, and that's perfect because when you are starting to writing for yourself, for people that you play with in the ensemble, writing music that is going to get played, that's the most important thing, right? Writing for yourself for posterity and putting it in the desk drawer, it's not so great. At least not in my view, because it's I love my music played. I love to hear people play it because I feel like it gives me a connection with other people. And I almost feel like I get to know them when they're playing my music and they get to know me even if we've never met. So to me that is a very important thing. And that's the right idea.
That is beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Is there any way for people who are not familiar with your music to hear all of your music? Maybe you have it all in one space, and I am very curious. I was sharing with you that I will like to hear more about your music. So maybe if you have a link or if you have a something that you can share with us, that would be great.
Yes, absolutely. So let me show you something here. Let's see. One of the first things that you can do if you wanted to be aware of what I'm doing is follow me on social media. I'm not great at social media. It takes up a lot of time, as you know. But I do try to keep at least some presence on social media for people who are interested in following me. Are you guys seeing this Facebook page right now? Am I sharing the right?
Yes, yes.
Yes, correct. So if you follow me at Olga Melkina-Vera Composer on Facebook, I have a composer page. And that is somewhere where I try to update, and whenever there's a new recording or a new composition or a new anything, new score published, I post it there. Okay. Another place that you can go to is my website, olgamelkinavera.com, and all of my compositions are here. If you click under compositions, they're organized by categories: solo guitar, guitar duo, guitar trio, quartet or ensemble, guitar with other instruments, chamber music, opera, art song, choral, orchestral, electroacoustic. And then there are links also to my Facebook page, and then links to my YouTube channel as well. So please stop by here on this page. If you click on something, I don't know, well, on anything, for example, Ensueno Edanza for solo guitar, and you click on that, and it opens up a page, and you can see if there's a video of it, there will be a video, and it talks about the piece, and there are links to where you can purchase the score. A lot of my guitar music is published by Oz. Not all of it. There are some of these most recent ones that I haven't even gotten around to publishing, but they can be, I'm considering self-publishing as well. And so you can listen to it here if you're interested. Right there, this is kind of like the one-stop hub for all of my compositions. This is probably the most detail and the most in-depth that you can find out. However, I would also like for you guys to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Let me see, because I recently started that. Can you see this? So if you go to YouTube and you go to
We're still seeing your website page.
Oh, okay. So I must not be sharing something, right? Hang on just a second. I'll stop sharing and then I'll do a new share. We'll go here. Okay, so if you go to, do you see YouTube now?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. So if you go to my channel, it says Olga Melkina-Vera or Olga Melkina-Vera Composer. I can't remember. Yeah, Olga Melkina-Vera Composer. I just started it like a couple of weeks ago because I felt like I wanted to put all the videos in one place as they're coming out, because some of them exist on the internet in different users' channels, and I wanted to kind of arrange them all together. So if you would like to follow me on YouTube, just subscribe to my channel, and every time there's a new video, I'll post it there. So I'm putting together, right now there's a playlist of 15 videos or so, different works. These are not all of my works, obviously, but the things that I have found good recordings of on YouTube, they're over here as well. Okay, so YouTube, Facebook. I'm also on Instagram as Olga Melkina-Vera. I'm not as good as at Instagram. It still confuses me, honestly. but I try to post something there as well, because I know that there are a lot of users there and a lot of people who are on Instagram. So that's where I would go to. Probably first my website, and then the Facebook page for Olga Melkina-Vera Composer, and then also the YouTube channel. Does that help a little bit?
Yes, a lot. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah, thank you. And do you guys want to see maybe a piece? Listen to a piece?
Yes, please.
Okay. Have you heard Ensueno Edanza? This is a recent commission. There's a Puerto Rican guitarist, Samuel Ortiz, who lives in Florida, and is a wonderful person and a great guitar player. And he commissioned me to write this work. This was a couple of years ago. And as he was about to release the recording and premiere it, COVID happened. And so, oh boy, so no live performances, nothing at all, right? So, well, people adapt, and so he created this really cool video and released it as the premiere of the work. So this is the premiere recording of this composition. It's called Ensueno Edanza for solo guitar that was written for Sam Ortiz. And let's play it. So that was a fun video. I think you did a great job, you know. And it's such a fun piece. So speaking of influences, that one is obviously influenced by Latin music, by Latin dances, right? There's a lot of Renee Izquierdo listened to this one and says, "Oh, there's a lot of Cuban in there."
Yeah, you can hear the tango as well in some of those rhythms and everything.
Yeah, different Latin dances that are interwoven into that.
That is very, very, very fun. Yeah, I loved it. And what about the video production? Were you involved at all in that video production? No?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. They did it all. This is in Lakeland, Florida. They
Mhm.
shot the video there, and he collaborated with the dancers you saw. So that is a cool thing that, you know, when you write a piece and you let it out into the world and people do things with it and you record it, they do their own thing, and which is so much cooler than I could have imagined, you know. So so that is a really fun one that I could share. And you know, there's one other thing that I wanted to share before we go, and that is there will be a CD of exclusively my compositions that will be coming out in 2021. And this is something that has been we haven't talked about it too much because we wanted to make sure that all of the players are on board, that everyone who is was interested in being on the CD will be. But now I feel like we can move forward and we can actually talk about it. Fernand and I got signed to a label called Frameworks, which is a young but exciting label out of LA. They're recording a lot of classical guitar ensembles and soloists and so on. And so this project that we're going to be doing with them next year will focus exclusively on my music and my recent compositions. And Ensueno will be on it, Ka'au, the Romanian Fantasy, the Etoile, um, and several other compositions as well. And for this CD, it will be kind of like an all-star cast of performers, and we're very excited to announce that. For example, there will be three of my quartets that are Nebulae, Pulsar, and Incantation and Rain, and they will be recorded by the Weimar Guitar Quartet. Maybe you've seen them, their videos online. Their lead guitarist is Stephanie Jones. Maybe you've seen a lot of her. She's kind of a YouTube phenom, a really phenomenal guitarist, and actually all four players are really stellar young guitarists that live in Germany. And they're going to be recording three of my quartets, which is really exciting. And then we will have Matt Palmer recording the Heavens 100. So this will be reissued. He had recorded it on his own album, but this will be a different recording. Then we will have Renee Izquierdo. We will have Clarinet meets Guitar. We will have Owen Moriarty from New Zealand, and we'll have Keithara Duo, yours truly, recording some of these works. And so we kind of have a lot of players from a lot of different places representing a lot of different styles, but all together it will be my recent works, and we're super excited about that. We're aiming for September release. So please follow me on Facebook or YouTube or something so that when the CD is about to come out that you are going to be aware of it if you're interested in getting a copy or, you know, downloading it or something like that.
Thank you so much and congratulations on this CD. We wish you the very, very best. Please let us know if there's any way that we can help you, that the community can help you. If you want to do whenever you have it done and you want to share with all of us, remember that Eddie Healy has an email list, and we really, really encourage everybody to sign up to his email list and share news with him about anything related with guitar or anything related with you, whatever you want to share with us that are the community.
Yes, absolutely.
We have a question from Mr. Andrew saying, what advice would you give young composers just starting off to get better at composition?
What you're doing already, like coming to a lecture like this, or it's not even a lecture, a talk, but um, that is exactly the right approach. Do as much as possible. You can learn from anyone, right? There's so much information out there. So many people can teach us something. So signing up for classes, of course, right? Studying composition formally, making sure you're working with a composition professor. I assume you're working with Professor Healy, which is great. So listen to your composition professors. Uh, be a good student in general, like in theory and music history, because all of those are influences and knowledge that are broadening your horizons. And theory is important for when you get stuck, right? So eventually, all composers we get stuck sometimes, and that is where the knowledge of theory and being really clever about how to use theory really comes through, and your knowledge of existing music literature. So be a good student of music history and music theory, and then of course listen to as much music as possible, right? And hopefully of different genres, and do score study. This is how composers all throughout the ages have studied, right, and learned the most. And that is probably still one of the best ways of studying, is find a composer that really inspires you, find their scores, specific scores, and listen with the score. So put the recording on, listen with the score, make notes to yourself, write on the scores, notice what is that composer doing well, what is it that's attracting you to it, what's working, and then steal from them. Just steal. Stravinsky said, good composers borrow, great composers steal. So take ideas that work somewhere else and use them in your own music. Obviously, if it's copyrighted material, don't steal it. But what I mean is just really take those techniques and apply them. And that's kind of how I learned, because a lot of times I studied on my own. I was pretty much self-taught until relatively recently. But what I mean by self-taught is that I got my inspiration and my knowledge from the music that I was playing, that I was listening to, that I was studying in my music theory and history classes. It's not because I was studying composition specifically. My formal composition study came much later. Actually, I had already finished my doctorate and was out of school for 6 years before I decided to go back and get a second master's in composition. And I went back to SMU, which was a great decision. I think it was fantastic. But I was already composing and publishing and performing, and people were already playing my music before I went to study composition formally. Is because I had been teaching myself, essentially. So you can be your own teacher. You just have to be very persistent and work hard. Because it's there's a lot there. There's a lot to learn. I feel like I'm just scratching the surface. There's so many scores that I wish that I had time in my life to just listen and study and write all over. But we do what we can, right? So we just the small windows of time that you have, apply them.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us.